Then you can start.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Good evening. और हम लॉकडाउन 4 के काफ़ी एंड पे आ चुके हैं. सो कुछ तरीके से कुछ थोड़े एक्साइटमेंट भी है कि ओके प्रॉब्ली वी आर बैक विल वेरी सून वी आर बैक टू बिजनेस बैक टू वर्क. Hopefully very soon all will be working and back to the business what we have been really dying for. So सबसे पहले मैं अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस कर लूँ. myself Chintan Pandya, representing Glambox, which is the official event partner for India Bullion Jewelers Association IBJA, and very happy to have today's session where we have the eminent personalities of the industry associated with the bullion and commodities banking industry. So very quickly, without taking much time, I would like to introduce today's moderator, Sir Mr. Prakash Shah, who is Director for Market Infrastructure and Disruptive Technologies Asia, representing World Gold Council, WGC. Welcome, Mr. Prakash Shah.
Thank you.
And I would request you to take the baton in your hand and take the session ahead from here on.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. I think it is a fantastic time to be talking about gold. It is passionate for all of us. Everybody here on the panel, everybody here who is coming to join as participants. I think you can't find a better panel than what we have today. Let me quickly introduce you to everyone. I will start with a natural flow of going from east to west. And I will introduce to you first Amar Singh. I think this name requires no introduction, at least for the market in India and even the global precious market. So Amar works for JP Morgan. He's been involved in the precious metal market since 1999, 2000, Amar. So it's, you can see that he's got 20 years of experience, and he's been through price of gold, which was at $200, and right now it is at wherever it is. So I'm sure some of the insight would be pretty powerful. Next on the list is, again, Mr. Prithviraj Kothari. The name needs no introduction. Everybody who has been associated with the bullion business in India would know of him, would have learned a lot out of him, and he continues to be an inspiring figure for the bullion traders. Let me introduce you also someone who I have cherished working with over the last 3 years, Som, as he's fondly called in the gold market. Som, again, needs no introduction. He is the managing director and heads the World Gold Council activities in India. Som has been driving a lot of policy work which the industry requires, and he's been one of the key enablers of ensuring that the industry stays together. Next, I would like to introduce you to our friend from the Middle East, Anshuman Sharma. Again, this name requires no introduction. Anshuman, has been a force of reckoning within the Middle East market. He's been based in Dubai over the last 5 years, and earlier was working with Axis Bank. Anshuman will bring a very different perspective to what we are seeing or what we would like to know about the Middle East market. And last but not the least, again, a very, very dear friend of ours, Vikas Chamaria. Vikas has been associated with this market, again, very similar to Amar, since 2000, 2001. He used to be at Barclays. And at one point in time, Barclays used to be the biggest metal supplier into India. Vikas now heads up commodity sales for a very, very strong bank, Toronto Dominion. The bank, some of you guys may not have heard, but it's one of the strongest bank in the world. And again, Vikas, with his insight into the North American and the European market, will be adding a new dimensional to the entire discussion. So just hold on. I think we will be having a fantastic discussion, and I will kickstart with making some of the things very, very relevant. Just because we've got banks on the line, I just wanted to ensure that some of these guys, or both Amar and Vikas, and I'm sure Anshuman will also not be able to express a lot of their views on price. I think we will be able to ensure that that confidentiality is maintained. So let me start off this particular event by taking on Amar, right? Amar, so the first question comes to you, and my view is that you'll be in a good position to tell exactly what is what you've been seeing in Asia, and the topic is gold 2020 and beyond. So it's a very open topic, Amar, but we'll try and make it very very focused. I have to me, I think you can really give us insight into what you have seen uh, starting at when gold price started moving from 1400 onwards, which I think the main trigger was the US-China war, the US-China trade war. I think that was the main trigger which started, making gold much more topical. And so that was sometime during last year when US-China started having a lot of disputes. Then you had this blowout in Iran, and then gold continuously found a bottom. Since then, we had COVID, starting this year in late December, January, and both of us have been following how COVID has been impacting the gold industry. So my first question to you, Amar, is that can you just run us through what happened in January, February, March, April in the physical gold market? Then you can talk us through about what happened in the paper gold market, and how do you see the gold market shaping up in the remaining of the year 2020. If you are able to also give some views on price, if you are able to give some views on physical flows, if you're also able to touch upon what kind of activities do you see within the central bank ETF community, how do you see the investment climate playing out, and what are the downside risks to gold? I think the audience would really appreciate your insight into this.
Thank you, Prakash, and I would like to thank IBJA for this opportunity. And I know we should have been seeing each other in one of the conference, but looks like we all have to be connected via virtual for the time being. So really thank you, IBJA, for setting up. And I would like also to thank all the members, all the friends in India with whom we interact. And particularly, I have a very different affinity, as Prakash mentions, as I've been associated more than 20 with the market for last 20 years. Coming back to specific what Prakash has asked me to talk you guys through, I think when January started, I think on a very second day of January, we saw this Iranian
Amar, can I interrupt you for? Can you be a little louder, because some of them are logging through the mobile phone and they are not able to hear you properly. Can you be a little louder?
Okay, I'll try to see a little bit more louder. So I think year started with again geopolitical uncertainty around Iran, as we all know, on the very next day, and gold moved all the way to 1600. And what happened after that? A lot of selling started in response to the level which was not seen for a while from the Southeast Asian market to start with. And we also saw some import, even though subdued, continued with China on account of Chinese New Year. Normally we see in good sizable import, particularly before Chinese New Year in January. And I think during Chinese New Year, COVID took another, I think China locked down Wuhan, and world became very different from the physical market perspective, as one of the biggest buyer of the world, which is China, suddenly can't import anything due to China facing the lockdown, etc., etc. And I think precious metal then continued and traded in like around there. And when Korea news came, etc., then we saw gold moving further high. I'll not go. We all know how price moved, but I think thereafter, particularly mid of March onwards, things started getting more worse. But till January, March, we saw substantial sales across Southeast Asia, China not buying, and then India buying a little bit, but nothing, any meaningful amount which can really support the market. So we started seeing a lot of inflow in Asia, but there's hardly any outflow. However, some of the demand from, particularly from investor community, continue to be strong. Like as Prakash mentioned, from ETF flows, which has seen all, I think the level which was never seen before. Now as we speak, almost 16, 17 million ounces, which in terms like 500 ton has flown into the global ETF. Central bank continue to be net buyer, even in first quarter, lesser than what we saw in Q1 19, but still they continue to be a net buyer. I think what changed later on, because of this lockdown hitting some of the key markets, likes of particularly who affects international precious metal market, likes of London and New York, suddenly we saw the market started behaving extremely volatile, not just the price, also some of the basis on which as a bank we make the market, like COMEX versus London. And these are the two very liquid market basis which we price the market. So I think we saw a March end started as we saw some Swiss refinery getting shut down. Airlines started grounding. And third, I think the most important is, even if you have metal, you can't withdraw from London and you can't move to certain market where this location premium started moving to a level which we, at least I have not seen in my life of working in 21 years. Seen many ups and downs in the market, like 2002 and 3, or 2000 particularly, then global financial crisis. We never seen such scenario. So I think these were like some of the things happening along with selling. You might have seen some news like Thailand, there's 1 kilometer long queue where investors are queuing up to sell their all gold. It's also gold higher prices to local currency weak, as dollar getting strong, as a lot of safe haven was gold as well as dollar. I think retail side I leave to other people, but I see continued demand from central banks, sovereign, investors like family offices, etc. remains. And I think it will continue, as I believe, because the low interest or negative interest rate will make this gold, whatever gold used to lose on account of opportunity cost. So gold will continue to be one, like safe haven. Two, I think something where you are not relying on currency, especially in this market where all the central banks are going to print as much as they would like. So I think these are some of the things which I saw particularly, and I will take a pause and maybe we'll discuss as we move forward. So key thing, just to summarize, I think no demand since January from China. India also from March, nothing much happening. Shanghai, which was always in premium, we see significant discount in March, April. Discount has come down over London prices. Logistical challenges due to COVID will continue, or it has really changed basic concept at which larger institution make prices. So I'll take a pause here and possibly Prakash, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amar. I think clearly what you're mentioning is that it has been investment which has been driving demand relative to jewelry, and it's no surprise that key physical markets like India and China, Thailand continues to trade at a discount. Kothari ji, I think where I want to start with, I first want to actually congratulate IBJA for always being there when the industry requires. I think you guys have been there for 100 years, so that speaks about how strong the foundation of the entire IBJA fraternity is. And I think from the bullion market side, we would like to thank you for providing insights, leadership to the bullion traders market. अमर ने जो बताया कि logistical issues, macro events have all helped gold price to go higher. Now, when you think about India, there is no better person than you to tell us. I think Indian market since March, as Amar has said, hardly there has been any import. Market is trading at a 2 to 3% discount, maybe sometimes more. Jewelry sales are negligible, so as we speak. Some jewelers are opening up. I don't want to go into the challenges, but I would like you to give me your view. How do you think? What are the positives that you think the industry will take up from this particular crisis? Because every crisis does create an opportunity. What do
Yes,
you think the industry should do it? Because ultimately, India is a big jewelry market. Maybe we need to now also figure out whether India can be a jewelry plus investment market. I mean, comparing what happened in 2003, when both India and let's I wouldn't say China, but large part of Asia started getting a stronger affinity to gold. India has remained where it is, and rest of the world has been moving far ahead in terms of accepting gold as an asset class. तो आपके हिसाब से क्या होना चाहिए? What are the things which industry should work on so that India becomes a dominant global market for gold?
yeah. Thank you, Prakash. Good evening, everyone.
कोठारी जी, आपका फोन जरा सीधा कीजिए, आपका स्क्रीन टेढ़ा आ रहा है.
एक मिनट, अभी?
हाँ, अभी सही.
अभी सही है ना? Okay. Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Amar, Vikas, Anshuman. It's all friends together. सबसे पहले मैं बता दूं कि इस कोविड में what happened in India कि किसी लोगों ने ऐसा सोचा नहीं था, पहली सी. और सेकंड चीज होगी कि इतना बड़ा लॉकडाउन, लोग 2 महीने, 2.25 महीना, आज 70 डेज होने आ गए, लोग घर में लॉकडाउन की स्थिति में हो. उन्होंने जो चीज नई कल्पना के बाद चीज हो रही है, और लोगों को अब पता चल गया है कि सेविंग्स मस्ट रिक्वायर. इनिशियली क्या होते थे, लोग EMI लेते थे, बैंक लोन लेते थे, कार लोन लेते थे, होम लोन लेते थे, टूरिज्म लोन लेते थे, वीकेंड लोन लेते थे, मतलब EMI के ऊपर ही पूरा जीते थे. अब उनको रियलाइज हो गया कि व्हाट द बिगेस्ट इश्यू ऑफ सेविंग का महत्व क्या है, उनको एक एक हाउस होल्ड को पता चल गया है. तो उससे क्या हो गया, एंड इवन इफ यू सी इन द इक्विटी मार्केट, in a month of April, almost 700 of crore rupees ETF gold in India. I'm talking about the only Indian market. In India, almost 700 crores equity mutual fund के अंदर gold ETF में buying हुई है. It's a premium of almost $60-70 premium. Second चीज, गोल्ड ये बाय हुई. सेकंड, जो गोल्ड सॉवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड जो गवर्नमेंट ने इश्यू किए थे द मंथ ऑफ April and month of May, which is the IBSA rate is they are taking from the IBSA rate. तो उसमें 1st April month का at the time of a higher prices, all time high in India prices, almost 823 crores of 1.77 tons of a gold people are buying in sovereign gold bond. In the month of May, almost 4.23 tons, almost in the April and a month, May month, almost 4.23 tons of a gold people are buying at the rate of higher prices. And it's approximately 1998 में 2,000 crores rupees people buying gold at the rate of a higher prices. So यहाँ पे ऐसा हो रहा है कि इंडिया के अंदर की थोड़ा बहुत पैनिक है. लोग इसमें 2-way ट्रेड होगा, लोग बेचने भी आएंगे, लोग खरीदने भी आएंगे. इसमें ऐसा है कि लोग बेचने वाले जिसको पैसे की जरूरत है, ऑब्वियसली है कि जो लॉकडाउन हुआ है उसमें हर एक को पैसे की जरूरत है. इनिशियली इट वाज लिक्विडिटी क्राइसिस इन इंडिया आल्सो. अगर लॉकडाउन के पहले भी आप देखोगे तो गोल्ड की सेलिंग उतनी नहीं थी, डिस्पैरिटी मार्केट में थी, और प्लस लिक्विडिटी क्राइसिस होने के, सेलिंग नहीं होने की वजह से सब कारीगर लोग भी बेकार बैठे थे और कहीं पे सेल उतना था नहीं. बट एवरीवन वेटिंग फॉर एग्जीबिशन आ रहा है, अक्षय तृतीया आ रहा है, हर लोग को होप था कि उसमें डिमांड अच्छा निकलेगा और उसके हिसाब से सब लोग प्रिपेयर करके बैठे थे. बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली मंथ ऑफ अप्रैल और मंथ ऑफ मे, द ह्यूज मैरिजेज इन अक्षय तृतीया, द मई मंथ इज फुल ऑफ मैरिजेज. तो वो पूरा सिस्टम था वो जो थोड़ा कोलैप्स हो गया. प्लस जो डिमांड गोल्ड की जो आनी थी वो उसके हिसाब से रुक गई. बट साइमल्टेनियसली जो डिमांड जो नहीं आनी थी वो आ गई। अब लोगों को सेविंग्स की तरफ ध्यान हो गया। इक्विटी के अंदर अगर प्राइस फॉल होता है तो कैसे अपन रिस्क फैक्टर को उसको कवर करें, तो गोल्ड पोर्टफोलियो के अंदर गोल्ड बढ़ाना चालू किया, गोल्ड ईटीएफ बाय किया, गोल्ड सॉवरेन गोल्ड बाय किया, लोगों ने फिजिकल गोल्ड बाय कर रहे हैं। तो इस तरह से टू वे ट्रेड होगा, एक बाजू लोग बेचने भी आएंगे और एक बाजू लोग खरीदने भी आएंगे इन्वेस्टमेंट पर्पज के हिसाब से। बट इट्स टेक्स 15 to 20 डेज और एक मंथ में ऐसी चीज सब ओवर हो जाएगी। बट ये अहेड ऑफ जून एंड जुलाई 2 महीना जो रहता है वो ऑलवेज विद द स्लैक सीजन रहता है, बिकॉज ऑफ वी आर डिपेंड ऑन द मानसून। एंड मानसून का जो गवर्नमेंट ने जो किया है कि मानसून इज 95% शुड बी अच्छा रहेगा, तो वो एक पॉजिटिव साइन है। पर मंथ ऑफ जून और जुलाई ये 2 महीना हम लोग के लिए काफी होता है कि हम लोग उसमें एक्सपांड कैसे, बिजनेस को कैसे एक्सपांड करें, और उसके लिए हम लोग सोचते हैं। और फिर उसके बाद में अगस्त के बाद में सब फेस्टिवल सीजन चालू होता है। उसके बाद में हेड ऑफ धनतेरस, दीपावली, नवरात्रि, धनतेरस, दीपावली, एंड उसके बाद में मैरिज सीजन चालू होता है टिल द होली। तो सीजन पूरा है। लॉकडाउन की वजह से थोड़ा बहुत सबको प्रॉब्लम है, द वे ऑफ लिक्विडिटी, वे ऑफ इंटरेस्ट रेट, उसका एक्सपेंसेस एक थोड़ा बहुत हुआ है। बट साइमल्टेनियसली साथ साथ में पॉजिटिव साइन है कि गोल्ड प्राइस मूव हायर हो गए हैं। और जो गोल्ड प्राइस जो 40,000 41,000 पे जो लॉकडाउन हुआ था, और आज गोल्ड प्राइस ऑल टाइम हाई 48,000 के ऊपर है। तो एक ज्वेलरीज के लिए एक पॉजिटिव साइन है कि प्राइस इंक्रीज हुआ है, तो उतना उनको प्रेशर नहीं आ रहा है, या लिक्विडिटी का उनको, इस मार्केट को इतना लिक्विडिटी का प्रेशर नहीं आएगा कि थोड़ा बहुत सेल करके आप उसको इंटरेस्ट पे कर सकते हैं और सैलरी भी दे सकते हो, या जो भी एक्सपेंसेस उनके जो ऑकर्ड जो फिक्स एक्सपेंसेस है उसको आप उनको ये लोग कवर कर सकते हैं। अहेड मुझे लगता है कि इसके बाद में जो गोल्ड का डिमांड इंडिया में होगा वो एकदम अपना अगस्त के बाद में एकदम शूट अप हो जाएगा। हम लोग एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं। मुझे लगता है इतना पॉजिटिव साइन आएगा, लोगों में इतनी अवेयरनेस आ जाएगी कि लोगों का ध्यान गोल्ड की तरफ काफी ज्यादा हो जाएगा और लोग ज्यादा गोल्ड खरीदने लग जाएंगे। तो मुझे लगता है कि प्रकाश, दिस इज अ गुड साइन कि ये 2 महीने में लोगों ने जो देखा है, सीखा है, समझा है और फैमिली को समझा है, वो मुझे लगता है कि धीरे धीरे गोल्ड लोग खरीदना चालू करेंगे। और उसका इन्वेस्टमेंट, सेफ इन्वेस्टमेंट के पर्पज के हिसाब से इंडिया में लोग ट्रेंड देखते हैं, प्राइस कोई नहीं देखता है। अगर आप देखोगे हायर प्राइस के ऊपर लोग ज्यादा बाय करते हैं, इंस्टेड ऑफ प्राइस जब टूटता है तो लोग रुकते हैं। तो मेरे हिसाब से सबसे बड़ी पॉजिटिव साइन इंडिया की रहेगी कि गोल्ड डिमांड काफी ज्यादा रहेगा। और मुझे लगता है कि जो अगले साल का इम्पोर्ट है, अगर लॉकडाउन अगर 1 तारीख से खुल जाता है, क्योंकि अभी से बहुत से स्टेट के अंदर अलग अलग थियरी है, लोग बाग डर रहे हैं, बाहर आने से डर रहे हैं, पता नहीं चल रहा है कि कैसे बाहर जाए, एक डर का वातावरण है। अगर धीरे धीरे 10-15 दिन, महीने में सब अगर सेटल होता है, तो मुझे लगता है कि सितंबर से हम लोग का जो सीजन फिर से स्टार्ट होता है, उसको हम लोग 2 महीने में पूरा कवर कर सकते हैं। और उसमें मुझे नहीं लगता है कि इतनी कोई हमें कोई दिक्कत आएगी, या ये पूरी इंडस्ट्री को इतनी कोई दिक्कत आएगी। थैंक यू प्रकाश, ओवर टू यू।
कोठारी जी, और एक सवाल मेरे पास है आपके लिए। आपने बताया कि जून, जुलाई एंड अगस्त थोड़ा स्लैक सीजन होता है सर। इक्विटी में तो कभी स्लैक सीजन नहीं होता है सर। इक्विटी मार्केट तो हर दिन चलते रहता है। मेरा पॉइंट है कि सर गोल्ड में भी ऐसा, एज एन इंडस्ट्री वी शुड कम टुगेदर एंड वी शुड ट्राई टू क्रिएट वन अवेयरनेस कैंपेन कि जैसे इक्विटी कल्ट सर, 15 साल पहले तो इक्विटी कल्ट नहीं था ना इंडिया में। इक्विटी को भी 10-15 साल लगा टू बिकम वेयर इट इज, इक्विटी एंड इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर्स। तो बेसिकली वी एज गोल्ड industry, we should come together and ensure that there is no slack period in the gold market. Every day is a good day to buy gold. That is what I'm trying to tell.
या इट्स अ ट्रू। अगर आप देखोगे तो अभी गोल्ड के प्रोडक्ट इंडिया में आप देखोगे तो सब प्रोडक्ट है। गोल्ड ईटीएफ है, एसआईपी है, आप सिस्टमिक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान सकते हैं, 1 ग्राम गोल्ड है, एक्सचेंज पे गोल्ड है, गोल्ड हेज भी कर सकते हैं, गोल्ड ऑप्शन भी है। तो इट्स अ लॉट्स ऑफ वैरायटी नाउ। तो अब जो इंडिया में है पूरी वैरायटी आ गई है। तो मुझे लगता है कि धीरे धीरे हम लोग सब साथ में जॉइंटली बैठ के जो भी हर्डल्स जो है, जो जैसे आपको पता है कि अभी डिस्कस चल रहा था एमसीएक्स के साथ में, अभी एक वेबिनार में था, तो वही है कि इंडियन गुड डिलीवरी के बारे में हम लोग काफी उसको प्रेशर कर रहे हैं कि हम लोग अभी 13 साल 14 साल जूनी एक्सचेंज हो गई है इंडिया के अंदर, और अभी भी हम लोग आज भी वहीं पे खड़े हैं जहाँ पे हम लोग 2003 और 4 में खड़े थे। आज भी हम लोग लंदन गुड डिलीवरी बार के ऊपर डिपेंड करते हैं, जबकि आरबीआई के डेटा के हिसाब से हमने अभी तक 1997 से 2019 तक ऑलमोस्ट 17,000 टन गोल्ड इंपोर्ट किया है एज पर डेटा ऑफ आरबीआई। तो आज हमारे पास सोना है, हम हमारा सोना उसको रिसाइकल में क्यों नहीं यूज कर सकते हैं? तो हमको चाहिए गवर्नमेंट के साथ में, सेबी के साथ में बैठ के एक पॉलिसी क्रिएट करे कि ताकि जो हाउस होल्ड गोल्ड है, टेम्पल ट्रस्ट गोल्ड है, जो गोल्ड अनयूज्ड है, मैं ये नहीं बात करता हूँ कि आपकी ज्वेलरी आप बेल्ट कीजिए, बट जो लोगों के पास काफी मात्रा में अनयूज्ड गोल्ड भी पड़े रहते हैं, एक्स्ट्रा गोल्ड पड़े रहते हैं, एटलीस्ट वही गोल्ड अगर 1000, 1500, 2000 टन अगर सर्कुलर में आए, ऐसी पॉलिसी हमने इज्जा के थ्रू भी गवर्नमेंट को बना के बहुत सी अच्छी अच्छी पॉलिसीज बना के दी है। बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली एनी टाइम हम लोग के लिए कुछ ना कुछ हर्डल आ जाता है। लास्ट टाइम में फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने गोल्ड स्पॉट एक्सचेंज का बोला था, उसके बाद में अनफॉर्चुनेटली बीमार हो गए फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर साहब, उसके बाद में वो आगे चला गया। इसके बाद में अब इंटरनेशनल गिफ्ट एक्सचेंज आया है, तो उसके लिए हम लोग रेडी थे, तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोविड आ गया, तो कहीं ना कहीं हर्डल आ रही है। पर मुझे लगता है कि इंडिया इज साइनिंग, इंडिया में फंडिंग आएगी, इंडिया में फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट आएंगे, इंडिया हर तरह से उसको कवर कर सकता है। और इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन के हिसाब से, द वर्किंग कैपिटल के हिसाब से, वर्कर के हिसाब से, मुझे लगता है कि इंडिया 2021, 22 इट्स आई थिंक इज द साइनिंग इंडिया है, और इंडिया को फिर उसको कोई पीछे वापस मुड़ के देखने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। आई एम मोर कॉन्फिडेंट ऑन इंडियन इकोनॉमिक एंड इंडियन अहेड ऑफ 2021 एंड 22।
फैंटास्टिक सर, आई थिंक आपने सबका खून गर्म कर दिया। Okay, thank you sir. Now Som, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Som, I think no better person than to bring you in right now, Som. Kothari ji has mentioned two very important things, which I think you'll be in the best position to talk about, Som. I think the need for the industry to come together and the need of the industry to make reformative policies. And I think he alluded to the fact that the exchange, the ability for a good delivery standard, also how India can play or have an impact to help the government to realize their deficit targets. I think you've been closely associated in most of the discussions. So I think, what do you see according to how Kothari has panned out his view on demand and price? How do you think India needs to get all the enablers so that this becomes a base for the next 10 years of improvement in the gold market?
Yeah, thanks, Prakash. I think he has both Amar and Kothari ji has said the right things. First of all, yeah, it's an unprecedented situation. There are always a mixed issues how this would play out in the next 6 months. See, longer term, absolutely there is no problem. When I say longer term, medium term, 1 year down the line, gold will be a preferred investment. It will continue to be, it will play a better, bigger role. We will see jewelry coming back. All that will definitely happen. What is critical is what's going to happen in the next 1 year, when we are going to see a lot of churn, not just in the gold market, across in the consumers' lives, in banks, various things. So out here, I think I like what Kothari ji said. Industry has to get together and work with the government. And we already have a lot of agenda to work together. It's not that we are getting together for the first time. There are small players, there are marginal players, there are large players as well, medium and large players. Their interests vary, but it is important that an association like IBJA, along with GJC and others, get together actually and make sure that the industry as a whole gives, first of all, it should give the government a lot of confidence that, look, yes, gold is a preferred investment, but let's not forget, if there is a runaway demand, policymakers are not going to just wait and watch. Yeah, it will put further uncertainties into the market. Okay, so we need to work with the government to see what are the priorities, and within that, make sure that the consumer is absolutely, consumer interests are kept in mind. And we have spoken a lot in various things. You should actually start doing more innovation, more value addition. And trust factor is one of the very, very big things that has come out in all the things. At 50,000 rupees, you need to build trust when I buy a jewelry. And so I think who can do this? I think only association, and particularly by IBJA, they can come together, bring the others also. After all, there are memberships which go across all the associations. I think we should, first of all, present a single unified face. Absolutely. But if you ask me what is going to happen to gold, I think it's look, demand will come back because demand is linked more to prosperity, income than just the price. So once, even if it is 50,000, 60,000, whatever it may be, I think there are more forecasts about gold price than about COVID, possible COVID deaths. I mean, I've been comparing both. Both have extreme things. So we don't know what the price is going to be. If the price really runs up very, very fast, very shortly, I think it will curtail consumer demand across all markets. At the same time, if the price continues to be around what we are seeing now, for various reasons, then you might find that after 3-4 months, people will come back and slowly, weddings will start happening. So we will see demand coming back. And if the reforms really take effect, incomes go up, I don't think we need to worry about the gold demand coming back. But the structure of the industry is more important now. Are we going to continue the past into the future, or are we going to present a more organized market are we going to become a little more organized? By organized, I don't mean everybody should become big, but we have spoken about various initiatives to make the whole market organized. Even the small players benefit, including a bullion exchange, retail gold investment principles. I think we need to seriously discuss, and associations must come together and do it. That's what I would say. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Som. Just one more thing, Som. I think even if you can add some of the insight that, I think Amar spoke about, that this year and the year ahead is going to be more driven by investment rather than pure jewelry.
Exactly.
I mean, how do you think we should, maybe it's the right time for us in India to start looking at making investment more formalized, making investment mainstream for gold, work with banks to develop products which are, regulated. Do you think that investment demand over the next 5 years can fill in the gap?
I think it should, particularly when it comes to, when it comes to jewelry, there has been a lot of development. I mean, a lot of, organized players have come. But if you really look at investment demand today in India, it's just dispersed. You can't even get a coin. Indian gold coin was launched, but it disappeared. But actually, had we had a balanced growth, say investment demand about 30%, whatever it is, even that gold will be in circulation. Actually, as Kothari ji said, it will be with banks, etc. So I think we must promote investment gold, including jewelers. We must actually bring back, in my view, we should bring back Indian gold coin, because then it becomes a currency within. When I just have money, I don't need jewelry, I will just keep it invested in a gold coin. Okay, and then when I want to buy jewelry, I can exchange the coin for jewelry, because the gold coin is absolute pure gold. Similarly, gold saving schemes with banks, gold-based financial products with banks. Now, we have covered all this through the steering committee in a bullion banking report. So I'm not marketing that report, but I'm just saying, absolutely, it is time for India to bring investment gold. There should not be a fear that this will drive up demand. On the contrary, it will actually increase demand, but balance it out with gold being held within the banking system. And banks must play definitely an active role. Today, I saw in one of the WhatsApp groups, the difference between the buying price and the selling price in certain markets by certain associations, I don't blame anybody, is 13%. On top of it, they say if it is non-hallmark, we'll deduct another 10%. So basically 25% is what the consumer loses if he or she brings a non-hallmark jewelry. Now, is that possible in any other market? I mean, how will you develop trust with that? Now, all these things happen because, there are no organized recycling markets. There is no organized savings products in the banks. The only way you can do it is have jewelry, and when you want money, you'll have to sell it as jewelry. Whereas if I don't need jewelry, I need some jewelry, but I need some, investment product, I should be able to hold it in the bank. So I think this is time for the investment gold market to become a lot more organized. And that's where the bullion traders also can play a bigger role in this. Over to you.
Thanks, Om. Fantastic. I think you've summarized some of the enablers pretty well. I would like to bring in Anshuman here because Anshuman has been associated with the Indian market, and now he occupies a good seat in Dubai, which has again a close proximity to the trade flows which happens from the west to east, and largely Dubai or India, are markets which work closely with each other. Anshu, can you just give us some updates about what you are seeing in the Dubai market, Middle East? You can also throw in some of your thoughts on what's happening in Africa, because I guess from the mining side, from the artisanal miners, Africa becomes an important source of doré. But more importantly, I will be happy if you can touch upon how you are seeing the Dubai market shaping up, both in terms of demand, both in also in terms of the peripheral markets, right? Because Dubai again becomes a trading hub feeding into the other GCC countries. I think your insight around that would be helpful. I also wanted to touch upon you one more thing about what kind of innovations are you seeing in the Dubai market, because being largely a jewelry market, I'm sure you'll be seeing things differently than what's happening in the Indian market.
Yeah, thanks Prakash, and thanks Ibja for the invite. I think I'll start with what Amar mentioned earlier. I think the liquidity issue is not something which was centric to one part of the world, but I think the whole globe has been affected by that. And Dubai, especially being the corridor for east to west and also the gateway to Africa, we've also seen the same results here. Also, the other important thing from a Middle East perspective is that this is a largely an expats market. So the locals are limited. There are more expats in this part of the world. Now, obviously, with the current scenario where we've seen, at the larger level, the impact of liquidity in the markets, plus the financial stress which is stemming out of that, and which will ultimately translate, to businesses not being able to function as they would like to, or people losing jobs or opting for pay cuts and all those things coming in. So I think the results of that all is, largely this market is not an institutional market, because obviously, the local financial system is not as active in terms of the banks in this part of the world as one would like it to be. So it's more focused towards the retail side and the logistics support which is associated with that. Having said that, the logistics support has been an issue since March, obviously with the flights closing down and most countries going under lockdown. It has been a challenge. And I think as a result of that, two things have translated globally, and the same reflect here also, is that the cost of transactions has definitely gone up, and the risk of doing the transactions has even gone up higher. So I think Africa was one of the places, unfortunately, who witnessed that the most, because they were actually handicapped. They didn't have any means of being able to move the produce of the gold from there to any part of the world, because there's no flights, and the liquidity crisis just mounted. And obviously gold, people were able to source gold at huge discounts in Africa at that point of time. I mean, you could always factor in the country risk and other things along with that. But having said that, the producers definitely suffered on that side. At this point of time, the Middle East is just coming out of the lockdown. UAE has just virtually started last 2-3 days after Eid. And with the other major markets like Saudi, Kuwait, Oman, still under lockdown, just likely to end at the end of this month. So it will be interesting to see what happens when they come out, and what will be the impact. But the initial feelers that we can see right now is that the jewelry sales is definitely going to be affected, with a lot of larger jewelry stores closing down a number of stores that they used to operate, which is an indication that they don't see very good times ahead for themselves. The banks, the loans, that will be another issue for them. The good part is that the financial markets are a bit like things like with RFID here, the jewelers at least are covered to some extent. And as Kothari mentioned, the prices of gold going higher is only helping them with the mark to markets for the time being. But we'll have to see how long that continues. We haven't seen any much of distress scrap selling yet in this part of the world. Officially, at least nothing that has been reported. So I think we'll have to wait and see how that translates probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, Anshu. Just one more thing, Anshu. I wanted to check with you. I mean, INTL has been gaining market share, right? It has been now spread all across the world. How do you see, from your perspective, how do you see price impacting demand globally? Do you feel that somewhere along the line people will give away the price impact and just, if they have to buy gold, they will buy gold at 1800, 1850? What do you strongly feel, and where do you think the price is heading in 2021?
See, I would look at that from two parts. Okay, one part of it is that as an asset class, okay, it all depends on the demand compared to how the other asset classes are going to perform, right? Now, as you mentioned rightly earlier, the equity market in India has been quite active, and I think the number of people who actually started trading in equity in India during the lockdown was a record. So I think it all depends on how the assets perform at this point of time. So I think the demand for that will move, will change according to that. Having said that, I don't think there is any doubt on the demand for gold coming down. Okay, I think it's irrespective of the prices, because the prices of gold are normally an underlying reflection of so many other parameters which are around. So I think the demand for gold will be robust. Yes, the way as Som mentioned earlier and you mentioned earlier, the pattern might change. It might move more towards investment bars. It might move towards paper gold. It might move more towards ETFs. I don't know, but the demand will definitely be there.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Anshu. Because I know that TD is pretty bullish on the price, but I won't touch upon the price at this point in time. I would like to get your insight on, you were in the hot seat in London when all the things around the EFP were unraveling, and again, you've seen record export out of Switzerland into New York. Which again, it's largely due to the fact of EFP. We have also seen record export out of Singapore going to New York. And again, I think where you are, I think you should be able to tell us more about, what was the general sentiment back then, right? I mean, most of the banks, we hear, or rather we've read about, HSBC $200 million mark to market, and those are all mark to market, right? Most of the banks have made up that amount. Going forward, how do you see this dislocation in the EFP market impacting the bank's balance sheets, right? I mean, do you think that this is here to stay and this will make the cost of gold higher for the end user? Or how do you see that, the user impact would play out because of this dislocation?
Thanks, Prakash, and thank you, Ibja, as well as Kothari ji, for organizing this for all the members and everyone in India, because it's a good forum to hear what's happening around the world and also understand what the future lies. So to answer Prakash, some of those points, like in Europe, we felt or we saw the first signs in March for this EFP blowouts, what you call, or like, working from home culture in the first place. No one was anticipating in banks or in the general working environment that you would be working from home for a prolonged period of time. So no bank or no institution was really programmed in the past for this, but it was a new thing. Everyone took it up with strides, and it worked well. If you look in the last 2 or 3 months, the movement of gold in Europe as well as in US has been record high. You haven't seen that huge volume of inflow of metal from Europe and Asia into New York or US in even good times. So when people talk about travel disruptions or no flights, it's unprecedented that in no passenger flights or such lockdown controls, you have moved, or generally market has been able to move record volume of gold from Switzerland as well as from Asia into New York. Now, this dislocation of EFP, like, I don't know exactly everyone has their own theory, but in my personal view, I think it was all to do with people assuming and that there will be no gold available in New York to against those contracts, and the physical would not be able to move from A to B, which obviously has been proved wrong. And you have seen that from March, where the EFP was trading, to where EFP is trading right now, when the June is settling, it's kind of shown that those fears were unjustified, and we can move gold in these difficult times. So gold has moved. It has created a better understanding that gold is not just a paper commodity. It is actually a physical commodity, and people need to understand the physical nature and physical aspect of it. One of the key things which got highlighted in this whole last couple of months was the difference in size or in weight or in purity, where certain markets are operating in a 400 ounce bars and certain markets are operating in kilobar 995 markets or 49 markets. And I think that disparity is something which over the coming years or months or years, we'll have to all as collectively across the world come together and resolve it, because we are all moving into this new digital and online age, where having different markets like China working on 49s, India working on 995s, Europe and UK working on 400 ounce bars, and New York working on 100 ounce or 995 bars is kind of, that's where the problem is, according to what I see. If those markets globally are more uniformed and work collectively, these dislocations or big swings the volatility may get slightly more manageable.
I think you raise a very good point there. Gold being gold should have one standard, which makes gold easily fungible, easily movable, and you can then have a multi-delivery location. So that will probably not create the risk of any further blow-ups. But having said that, I think from where you are, you also get to see a lot of producer hedging, producer flows. Do you see this higher prices, right, enticing more producers to come and hedge, or the other way to look at it is that I'm sure the producers will also be thinking, if the price of gold is going to trend higher, I would rather buy back my hedges, right? So two questions to you. Do you think that higher prices will propel more producer hedging, or do you think the higher prices would propel producers to de-hedge their books?
See, like these higher prices, like as some of the other people have mentioned, like, everyone is bullish, or Kothari mentioned that like this is just a start, like, 2021, 2022, things will be more bullish in gold. I personally feel the same as well, that yes, it will be bullish, but will it entice the big producers in Europe or US or Canada to start hedging more? It's difficult to say. Like, no one thought about this pandemic situation ever. Is it like the bigger question which everyone is asking right now is that, is this once in a decade phenomena? Is it once in 100 years phenomena? Or is it going to happen every 2 years? Like, so once some of the science and medical information is more freely available and people have digested that, they could make a more informed decision in terms of their risk management and hedging books and practices. I don't see anyone changing their current process or practices overnight. Everyone is going to evaluate the situation and probably over the next 3 to 6 months, see how the market develops and then formulate a new strategy if required.
Great. The other thing what I wanted to check with you also is that, where you sit 100 meters away from Bank of England, and you are at the epicenter of both the European and the North American market. Because of this EFP issue, and you rightly pointed out that gold should have one kind of standard, you are also aware that India is working on developing a spot exchange in GIFT, International Bullion Exchange, which is now recrystalline. Do you think having a custody vault there linked to local London stroke CME will help the Indian market to become much more organized, will help the Indian market to be a part of the global infrastructure, also help the Indian market to, have a efficient trading ecosystem? Because, right now the advantage which we have is that, we have a complete whiteboard and we can paint the picture which we like. And I think this particular government is very keen to ensuring that, we leapfrog into having the best infrastructure for the gold market. What are your thoughts on that?
Prakash is a good point. I think GIFT City is a very good initiative. And I think along with all the associations and World Gold Council, you guys are doing what is required to make it a big center for coming and going out of India. Yeah, it's a good idea. It would all depend on how India develops. For me, as I see India, I think the bigger question is that India is competing with China as to, is China the biggest importer or India the biggest importer for the next 5 or 10 years? And to make the Asian market function better, the bigger issue would be to resolve is India also becomes either a 4-9 market. Why is India still importing 995 kilobars where whole of Asia imports 49 kilobars? If tomorrow India also imports 49 kilobars, then it becomes more accessible for rest of the market players or international players to view that market as part of Asia and part as one market. So would create more ease and accessibility for Indian market or foreign players to be accessing the Indian market easier than what it is now.
No, it's a fair point, right? I think many a times we pay 49 price and import 995. So that needs to definitely change. Yes, I think I agree with you that GIFT can become a hub, and we all are trying to ensure that it works best for the industry. But I just have one more question to you before I take it over and pass my questions to Amar. Again, the entire ETF demand has been dominated by the North American and the European market, right? And you work very closely in the EMEA market. You work very closely in the German market. Do you see parallels between the German investors and Indian investors? I mean, even Germans love gold. They like buying gold bars, gold coins. They love investing gold through ETF. Where do you see, how do you draw the parallels? Because, being an advanced economy, they still keep buying gold. Why do you think that they do what they are still doing?
A very good question, Prakash. I think it is true that the Germans buy a lot of physical gold. The only parallels I can draw is that, the population is aging, and with the aging population, people are not what's happening in Europe and Euros and Brexit and everything. People get more and more jittery, and when people are not comfortable, the normal recourse is take gold as a safe haven and do investments in gold. So the age group between 40 to 80-year-olds in Germany, they are not investing and keeping in saving accounts, which the euro interest rates are minus or negative 25 or flat. So today you keep money in a bank account in UK or Europe, you are getting nothing on your savings. So how do you make the savings work? And those investors are not used to or have easy access or understanding about the equity market, which is not that developed. So the best investment for them is okay, let's invest in gold. So you see the vending machines being very active or successful in Germany, where people buy gold from vending machines, and the German banks, how the Indian banks probably 10 years ago used to sell gold through retail branches. All the German banks and lot more European banks have branches, retail branches selling gold coins or gold bars, which makes it easy on a train station or even on a corner of your house where there is a retail branch of a German bank. You can walk in and buy gold. So it's the easy accessibility to buy an investment product, which gives makes them buy more. So I think in India, similarly, the demand was much high when you could walk into a normal SBI or an HDFC or any of the local banks and buy gold over the counter. Now you can't. And I think that's something which I'm sure it's there on the blueprint, which SOM and others are working, other organizations, to get government to start allowing or hopefully in future making it more accessible to the general public.
So just one more, right, on this, on when you say that, the retail banks in Germany are allowed to sell and buy gold. And, Som brought out a very good point that, in one of the WhatsApp chat, he saw that, the slippage cost is about 25%. What do you think is the normal slippage cost in Germany, right? I mean, is it like 5%, 7%, or is it as high as 25%?
I'm not 100% sure, so please don't quote me on these numbers, but I think it is more like between 5 and 10%. It's not as high as 25% because that's too high.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. No, just wanted to get to know a bit about that. Thanks, Vikas. I'll come back to you, but I'll just go to Amar for 1 minute. Amar, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Prakash.
Amar, I just want to come back to you on China because you guys are very active. You guys have been in the market since it opened up. So you've seen the development of China, and I don't want to draw parallels out here, but how economic it is for you to do business in China versus India? How different and how difficult it is when you do same amount of volume. Let's say that you do 100 tons in China and 100 tons in India. How difficult, how easy, and how economic it is for JP Morgan?
I think, Prakash, thank you so much for this question. I think it's not an easy question, I would say. Definitely, I think since 2014 or 2013, we have seen only one way of India, especially I'm talking more from the suppliers perspective or international banks perspective. It is only getting challenging and difficult. And I think, please forgive me as I keep saying all the time, I think it hasn't changed anything in last 2 decades from Indian domestic intermediaries perspective, except some of the developments like coming up Good Delivery refineries and many other refineries, and possibly bringing Dore. The second thing is some of the players or the nominated agencies who used to import and possibly would have done better, not better, but at least more innovative, they were withdrawn from offering these services. So you are left with, I would say maybe 5 or 6 active banks. So I would say, I think comparison, I think, is not really appropriate. Reason is as follows. We may consume as much as in China, but the offerings in China is much, much more. And the ease of doing business, especially with intermediaries like banks, are much, much better as compared to what we do in India. And the reasons are as follows. One, they are not playing a role of agency business. They are playing a bullion bank role. What it means, they never come back and say, I want 100 kilo consignment and I want 5 or 10 kilo release. I'm just giving you some of the things which we do as an international supplier, which means basically I am doing their intermediaries risk management, I'm doing their ops, logistic. So it becomes a very demanding from a supplier's perspective, and that is the reason you see day by day, lesser interest from the international suppliers. And also, it is not just this, also the market dynamics are changing in India. Like local gold production has gone significantly through the refineries, as well as also, because of duty, the import number have dropped significantly. So I think coming back to your question is definitely, I think China is like any other international market, I would say, whether you deal with Europe or US or possibly some of the developed market in Asia, except import. They only import, they don't export. They also have many products, which means they do more market activity with us, not just physical, and around physical, some of the trading. So it's a very different market, Prakash, I would say, as compared to what we have. And I think most of the international banks like us are invested, or because we think we want India to grow and India to develop. And particularly me, I grew up in India. I learn everything from Indian market. People with whom I'm talking, they are the one with whom I taught as I grew up. So I have special affection, as I said in the beginning, to the industry and to the people, to the market. And I want, at least in my time, if these things happen, then at least I will be happy and very happy, as possibly we all will do more business and possibly we all will service better to the industry. So what I want, I would echo what Kothari ji said and what Som sir said earlier. It's not the time for us to criticize what we don't have, but it's the time. I think the talk for last year has been pretty constructive. Let's keep this going, and I'm thankful WGC to lead this. Let's get something out of it, but I would still encourage and request the banks, particularly some of the key banks who understand the market dynamics and can play a critical role, and that will be very critical to not have some of the situation like 25% cost of doing this business. That's absolutely mainly because there is not many significant participant player who should be in this market. So I think maybe work from WGC, IBJA, and JGPC and all these associations will bring some change to the market, where possibly bank can play a significant role, not in trading, but of providing all the risk management, all financing, efficient storage, value-added product. And then I think it will become an interesting market for international banks. So I think if we don't act timely, we might see many more banks taking one step back. One more thing I would say here, as Ansuman said earlier, due to COVID, and I think the cost will go up, cost from shipping cost, manufacturing cost, and cost even bank would like to for the country risk or the risk which we take. So I think one message I will leave with you guys to think through that when you are looking to your business from medium to long term, please keep in mind, I think India was able to source extremely good value metal from the international market, extremely aggressive lending rate. If you talk about gold loan rate, I think slowly and steadily this will move on the other side. I'll stop here, Prakash. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amar. Just one last question on China itself. How would you rate the role of the exchange out there? The entire ecosystem relies on Shanghai Gold Exchange, right? You get prices there, you do delivery, there's one standard, products are developed based on the price of Shanghai Gold Exchange. And, you've been part of the steering committee and you know that the industry is working towards getting the exchange off the ground in India at GIFT. I mean, as an international supplier, I'm sure you would want to play a positive role in enabling the exchange becomes the key ecosystem provider in India.
I think one thing I would say, I think the work is already happening, is if you have one voice all together, I think it will have much more impact. Exchange will definitely play a bigger role as we all talk through, as it will give transparency what investor, whether financial services related products or retail investor, they can see what the price is. So I think, yes, China, because China was top down, basically regulators sit down with many industry experts, participants, and they frame the industry. However, what India is grappling around, in India, I think one, of course, we already have, but I think we are talking through many things, but it's not the same situation. So I believe exchange possibly can become one platform where at least you have transparency, possibly driving some of the ecosystem, like what could be the good deliverable for India, like what we have in China. Some of the sourcing guidelines, which works for India, as well as some of the like warehousing, dealing with custom, dealing with likes of refineries, and also some of the situation I think which we dealt recently with an ETF, where one good delivery bar went through many conversations. I don't know where it finally ended. I think some of the people where people can go and ask what is right, what is not right. So in my view, this should be one forward-looking step. And I think I've been saying in wherever I get this opportunity, a lot of people have different view, like it may take away my business. I think we all know only this will enable to you do more business. Maybe you have to change your business style. And that in any way, we all are changing, as Vikas mentioned, work from home. I never imagined in my life in financial market, in an institution like JP Morgan, I can work from home and as efficiently as possibly I have been. So I think world is changing. We have to accept, learn from people like what they have done in China, and possibly we build something better than what they have. And definitely, I believe we can.
Thanks, Amar. Just last word from you, if you can reply to this. Bullish or bearish? Because there are a lot of questions here. Bullish or bearish gold? Personally,
so I think, so I'll give you, even my bank is bullish, my research I'm talking about. My personal view, looking at the flow, especially from the retail investors through ETFs, official sectors, and some of the bigger macro, which is like lower zero or negative interest rate, deep recession across global economy, and as I said earlier, opportunity cost for holding gold is kind of negligible if you look at what other you can have. So in short to medium term, maybe we continue to see some sell-off from key markets who are the natural buyer of gold. What we have seen, I think last 3 months, one thing I forgot to tell you, which we all know, is Asia, which is natural buyer of the gold, has been net seller. And America, where possibly it was more price discoveries, where all the metal is flowing, America or London. So I see maybe the way last 2 decades has been for gold demand and supply, it might change. Demand from China, India, depending how it will be, I think it will definitely not like what we have seen in last 2 decades. However, some of the demand will come from sectors which I think could be extremely, extremely as big as what these 2 economies were consuming for a very large, for last 2 decades. So I think I'm very constructive on demand. I'm constructive based on some of the macro. Medium to long term, gold will trade high. And so I'm very constructive. And I think whenever somebody asks, what should I do? Gold, do anything, but don't go short on gold. That's my always recommendation. Can it drop off for a while? I think if you look at global financial crisis, before it started big rally, it did drop around 20-30%. So I think whether March correction, we take this, or we might see another dip, I don't know, but anything, being a gold businessman, I think I particularly believe it is only moving up. It's just a matter of time.
Thanks, boss.
Thank you, Prakash.
Anshu, same question to you. What do you think? From where you sit, do you believe that gold has a good tailwind? Do you continue seeing demand? Do you continue to see higher prices? I think, and also the last question for you is, I mean, you know, one of the conferences or one of the webinars which we attended earlier spoke about having 3 India good delivery list. I mean, we as industry feel that there should be one good India good delivery list. What is your take on that? So just 2 questions. Where do you see the price, and where do you, and what are your thoughts on having just one good delivery list?
I think on price, I think the in-house view is similar to what Amar shared earlier. We are also bullish. We believe, I mean, it just seems quite logical at this point of time, seeing all the parameters around, that the gold has a good run, at least for this year. In terms of demand for gold, I think that's also going to stay. I think it's only, you know, if you see, for example, like, you know, Amar and Vikas are here from banks. I mean, till last year, till the last decade, you know, we used to be servicing clients on the phones, and now today, almost 95 to 98% of the trades are on the platform. So I think we adapt as we move forward, and I think the same case going in this scenario also, where I think the demand will change the form, but the demand will be there. Now, that's basically what I would say here.
Okay, thanks, Anshu. And just one quick thought on having just one good delivery list rather than, you know, a couple of them.
I think it'll make it easier. It reduces confusion. It's much better if you have one list.
Okay,
it will
thanks.
synergize.
Yeah, makes sense. Last word for you, Vikas. You've heard Amar, you've heard Anshuman, both probably bullish. You know, their house view also bullish. If you are comfortable, where do you think gold is heading? Where do you think demand is heading? And how comfortable are you with the current price environment?
I think our in-house research is also quite bullish. Like, you know, TD Strategy and Research have been publishing articles every week about demand and consistent demand, and all the factors which, like Amar and Anshuman mentioned, like, you know, there is demand from various sectors, from ETFs to retail investors to high net worth individuals to sovereign wealth funds, so, and central banks, everyone buying. So in this environment, even if 1 or 2 sectors stop buying, the demand will still going to be there. So overall, like, we are quite bullish, and as our research team publishes, like, you know, I'm with them in the same view that 2020 and 2021 seems bullish, at least for gold for the short term.
Thanks. And now over to Kothari ji. Sir, do you think 2000 handle possible, or do you think that, you know, gold will need to break out the range before it touches the 2000 handle?
No, I think in 2020 it's difficult to touch 2000, but maybe 1850 or 1900, 1870 or 1900 it is possible. I don't think so 2000 in 2020 may be touching, but in 2021 maybe it's possible, 2000, 2200 also possible. I am more bullish in gold and as well as also silver. So my personal view, rupee should be appreciated in the range of 70, 65 to 70. And gold should be in the range of, in the 2020, maybe on downside should be around 1650 or 1680. And upper side should be 1850, 1870. And on the 2021, I am bullish, 2000, maybe 2200 till 2200 maybe touch. But rupee should be appreciated in India. Prakash?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, heard you. Yes, thanks. So last word from you before I go to Mr. Mehta for vote of thanks, Som. You've heard all the gentlemen on the panel, Som, and I think all of them are really, you know, keen to get the industry reformed and organized. Couple of your takeaway thoughts, Som, because I think that will matter a lot for these people to be guided.
See, Prakash, I think the time for discussions are over. The industry has been disrupted significantly. We would not have even thought of this 6 months ago. It's a time when there is pain, of course, but when we put it all together, I think it should be a far stronger market, which means a lot. And that means we don't have to find new initiatives. There are initiatives which we have already started, all with the industry. We have the RGIP, we have the bullion exchange, we have the monetization scheme, some people working. All we need to do now is industry has to take ownership, and instead of waiting for the government to come back and say, industry has to keep telling the government what to do, but bringing it in one voice. I think that is extremely important now.
Sure.
And that would actually change the way the industry behaves after the COVID is over. We can be a global player only when there is a single voice of the industry. It is not an industry where anybody can come in and do what they want. There has got to be some order. That's it.
I think so. You raise a very, very crucial point. Single voice, I think is very, very important, because wherever we see the other markets, and I'm not comparing here, but there is one single representation to the government and policymakers. And I think that is the time that we as India and as industry do it together. I think really golden word. So before I wind up, I would like to pass it over to Mr. Surendra Mehta, who again, every one of you knows. Mr. Mehta has been instrumental in, being very open and very opinionated in the public forum also about how he thinks the industry should shape. Mr. Mehta, if you are around, can you just close out and give a vote of thanks?
Thank you, Prakash. Som has ended very nicely that one single voice for the industry. And it is glad to hear Amar, Anshuman, Vikas, and Som all together. And everybody is bullish on gold. Kothari ji has always been bullish on the gold. He has always been. But one thing which Kothari ji always say, that rupee can appreciate. That is something I think we need to learn from Kothari ji. I am really surprised. So I need to take a lesson from him. But Kothari ji, एक सवाल मैं आपसे पूछता हूँ कि अगर रुपी अप्रिशिएट होगा तो गोल्ड इंडिया में कैसे बढ़ेगा? ये थोड़ा सा लोग मुझे व्हाट्सएप करके पूछ रहे हैं.
कोठारी जी, आपका अनम्यूट करना होगा आपको.
ओके. अभी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ सर.
यहाँ पे आप देखिएगा कि कभी भी इंडिया में अगर इंटरनेशनल रुपी अपना अप्रिशिएट होता है तो गोल्ड प्राइस उसको इक्विवेलेंट करके $10, $12 फिर बढ़ जाता है. तो मैंने आपको पहले कहा था कि इंटरनेशनल मार्केट $1800, $1900, $2000 जाएगा और रुपी अप्रिशिएट होगा. तो यहाँ पे जो बाजार होती है उस पे भी इफेक्ट आएगा, बट उतना फास्ट इफेक्ट नहीं आएगा. आइदर वो मे बी 55,000, 57,000, 60,000 इस तरह से इफेक्ट आएगा. बट ओवरऑल रुपये अप्रिशिएट होना है, इंडिया में फंड आना है, इंडिया की फोकस है अभी हम लोगों को इंडिया के बारे में. जो चाइनीज के अंदर जो हुआ है और जो हम लोग मार्केट को देख रहे हैं, इंडिया ने जो टैक्स स्लैब को कम किया है, तो 17% टैक्स किया है न्यू कंपनी के लिए. अभी जैसे जैसे आप देखोगे, जैसे जैसे लॉकडाउन ओपन होगा, काफी पॉलिसीज अनाउंसमेंट होगी और बहुत से टैक्स इंसेंटिव भी देंगे. मतलब हर तरह से इंडिया को एक हब बनाने की कोशिश करेंगे कि लोग फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट इंडिया में आए, इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट करे. और इंडिया से काफी इजी कनेक्टिविटी भी है हर जगह पर. अगर आप देखोगे तो द पोर्ट अवेलेबिलिटी, द itself is a huge 101.3 billion population. तो इंडिया खुद कंज्यूम करता है और प्लस एक्सपोर्ट भी अपन यहाँ से कर सकते हैं. द लेबर इज अवेलेबल, द एज ऑफ अ लेबर इज, द एज ऑफ इंडियन इज स्टिल अंडर 30-35. तो ये सब चीज पॉसिबल है और पॉजिटिव साइन है. और मुझे लगता है कि इंडिया के अंदर फ्लो काफी ज्यादा आएगा. प्लस अगर आप देखोगे तो इक्विटी मार्केट में जो अभी प्राइस चल रहे हैं वो काफी, बहुत से प्राइस है जो एकदम बुक वैल्यू के नीचे भी चल रहे हैं. तो ऑब्वियसली बैंक प्राइजेस देखो, आप बैंक शेयर के स्टॉक के प्राइजेस देखो जो कहाँ पे थे और आज कहाँ आ गए. तो ऑलमोस्ट बहुत से इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी इंडिया में ओपन है और लोग काफी लोग इंडिया के अंदर इन्वेस्ट करेंगे और काफी पैसा आएगा। थैंक यू सुरेंद्र भाई।
Thank you, Kothari ji. So, with the golden words of Kothari ji, 50,000 to 60,000 rupees. Amar is also bullish on gold. His research team says bullish on gold. Anshuman's research team says bullish on gold. Vikas research team says bullish on gold. Som definitely does not give any predictions or projections for the gold, but doing a great work with IBJA. Thank you, Som. Thank you, Amar. Thank you, Anshuman. Thank you, Vikas ji. And Kothari ji, thank you so much. And Prakash ji, thank you so much for moderating this session. We had around 300 participants. And I think for a bullion conference, for a bullion webinar to get a 300 participant, I never thought of. Prakash asked me how many participants we'll have. I said we'll have not more than 125. But I am shocked, and a lot of foreign participants. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Surendra bhai. Thank you, Glenn Box. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
all
you.
the audience.
Thanks.